And you're listening to centralcoastradio.com, where we've all jumped into the studio right now because we're celebrating everything Nicolas Cage this week as we take a look at Renfield. And we decided that that will actually be our topic this week. We're actually going to take a little trip around the group tonight as we talk about who or what is our favorite Nicolas Cage movie. Each of us are going to say it. So let's kick it off with Harley. Harley, what is your favorite Nicolas Cage movie and why?
Well, it's funny because I'm not a big Nicolas Cage fan. Um, and I can't really remember why that is. I think usually the movies that came out that featured him, I just always saw as being terrible, so I really didn't want to see them. And there's all these moments I would see of him of just like this weird overacting stuff he'd do, and then I don't know, it just never never caught on with me. And I think when I found out that Tim Burton was making a Superman film that starred Nicolas Cage, I'm like, why the hell would you cast him as Superman? So there's this thing in the back of my head the whole time is like, what the hell? But I remember back in the day he came over here filming, I believe, in
Yeah,
Melbourne.
yeah, he did
Filmed a few
two.
Doing
movies here.
Yes.
yeah, Ghost Rider. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. The second one particularly, um, I
Oh,
really liked that film. But again, like I because I was interested in the character more than him, that's
mm,
why I saw that film. But actually, this year I saw that movie, the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent,
Yeah.
oh,
and there's just such a self-referential, like self-degrading kind of thing. It is so funny. Like just the fact that he's willing to do that, kind of make fun of himself, was so entertaining. So that by far is my favorite Nicolas Cage movie.
yeah. No, I
Awesome.
love that one as well. It's like he's really at a meme
Yeah.
part of his career right now where he's just done so many crazy things over the last 20 years that now like the roles that he's in are just really playing up on that, I believe.
Yeah, and because he did actually end up voicing Superman too in Teen
Yeah,
Titans, so
yeah,
but it was really interesting because when he did Ghost Rider, one of the things that they had to cover up on him was his Superman and Ghost Rider
Tattoos, yeah.
tattoos, because it would have been too difficult to explain. So
I, th-
yeah.
I think his Ghost Rider would have been the kind of person to get a tattoo of Ghost Rider on himself.
Yeah. But I think the scene they were talking about is early on in the movie when he's changing like before his Ghost Rider. So it's like,
Yeah.
Maybe they should have just CG'd it so that the tattoo appeared as he's transforming.
Mm.
yeah.
Whoa, I've got a tattoo now.
So Kyle, what is your favorite Nicolas Cage movie and why?
Uh, yeah, I've got a few of his that I'm a fan of. Like growing up, I knew him, of course, as more of the action movie guy. I know that he was in a lot more, I guess, a lot more brainy movies before that, like Leaving Las Vegas, and like he was known a lot more for his dramatic work, but he did pretty much a what I think they call the Nicolas Cage flying through the air trilogy of movies, where he did back to back The Rock. Oh no, he did yeah, The Rock, Con Air, and my personal favorite, Face Off, all back to back. And all three of those movies end with a finale action scene which has him flying through the air because of an explosion or a crash or something. Like all three of them back to back. It was great. But all three of these movies are great. But Face Off, I think, is my favorite because it's the first time that I'd really seen him just go completely off the rails as well, I guess as Sean Archer and as Castor Troy, being able to play like these two different characters along with John Travolta. And yeah, just uh, it's also, I think, John Woo's only good American movie that he made. Like he made like John Woo came over, he made quite a few duds, I guess, that were butchered or whatever, then went back to Hong Kong. But yeah, this is the one that really stuck. It kept all the crazy uh gun ballet of what was it, like gun opera or a ballet of violence, or however you want to put it. But just the action scenes, they're crazy. And yeah, just of course Nicolas Cage playing just these Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. I guess it's a twofer. You get two for the price of one, of two crazy overacting performers, just given these crazy performances in this movie. So yeah, that's probably my favorite. And yeah, it's one that's referenced quite a bit in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, with the Madame Tussauds doll, the big figure of himself, the life-size
That's
statue
right.
of
Yeah.
himself. Oh, what's that? It's horrible. How much I want it.
I
Yeah.
I remember that film coming out, and it was such a big deal, and it was raved about so much, and like everyone wanted to see it.
Mm.
And I didn't get to see it at the cinema, so eventually I saw it was on TV, but I only caught one scene, which was him dressed as a priest or whatever, just bopping about in the street like
Yeah,
an
yeah.
idiot. And I thought I can't watch this movie, and switched it off.
I think that's one of his earliest scenes in the movie as well. I think
Yeah.
it's like
I
the
was
first
just like, no, I'm not watching this.
the first thing is him dressed as a priest grabbing a girl's ass. It's like
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
crazy.
So I'll drop another little bit of trivia in here. Nicolas Cage started his acting career under his original name, which is Nicholas Coppola, of course.
Mm.
So Lee, now it's your turn. What's your favorite Nicolas Cage movie and why?
Oh wow. Now opposite to Harley, I have always been a Nicolas Cage fan. In the early days. I think I like his earlier work even more than the stuff that he's doing right now. Not to say I don't like this stuff. It's just I really like, the older films. So I had a lot of trouble picking one because I'm just going to list quite a few, because when I looked up on IMDb how many mentions he has in film, 422. So I feel like if I do a top few, that's okay, because there's so many to choose from. But I really love Ghost Rider, National Treasure, Gone in 60 Seconds, 8mm, The Rock, City of Angels, Face Off, Left Behind. But my number one, because I won't go into depth about all those ones, but my number one is Con Air.
Oh yeah.
I've always been fascinated with prison movies and escapes and fugitives and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the psyche of people and trying to work people out. So in this storyline, he plays someone who's just been paroled, and he's heading back on a flight, but he's on a prison transport flight with the worst criminals in history, basically. And yeah, it becomes a situation where there's an escape and he becomes a fugitive, but he was not in the planning of the escape. So yeah, there's lots and lots of action in this film. There's does he become one of them, or does he become a hero storyline? And then there's some really out there characters. So you've got John Malkovich playing Cyrus the Virus. And you've got John Cusack playing the US Marshal, Vince Larkin. You've got a pretty big cast in this. Like there's
Steve Buscemi as the psycho
names.
character
Oh,
was great.
he is a terrible character, but so fascinating. Something that just years later, because I haven't seen it for a while, one thing I remember is him talking about how he wore someone's head as a hat.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like just, when you talk about prisoners, these are the prisoners that you think will never get better. Like they're always going to be a danger to society, and he's out there, he's escaped. So that is why I like this story. And of course, you've got his love interest, and he's a dad as well, so he's trying to get home to his daughter. So you've got the family storyline, you've got the interaction with John Cusack's character as the agent, and yeah, it's all intertwined with some really out there characters.
It's a movie where Nicolas Cage is probably one of the least crazy characters in the entire movie.
Oh, for
That's a
sure, for
rarity.
sure.
It's interesting because see, that movie really never appealed to me, and I've only ever seen bits and pieces of it, and I just think, no, not really. But I can understand why you would want to go and see it. Like you said, like a prison escape type thing is always really interesting to see what people do to try and get out of these situations. Like if it's done in a clever and ingenious way, that's going to be so fascinating.
Yeah,
But
for
it was just
sure.
sort of nothing else really appealed to me at the time. Like I don't know, I started veering away from like major action movie kind of things and was exploring like foreign cinema and stuff. So it just sort of never circled back to me on that one.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit like Lee. I had a little bit of a Nicolas Cage wall when I was at film school with his posters on my wall because there were so many I liked. But yeah, I love 8mm. I love The Croods even. Some of his newer films I really liked. I really liked Pig, which is pretty much John Wick but with a truffle pig.
Yeah, that was great.
Color Out of Space. I even like Season of the Witch,
Oh, yeah, I did
which
like
is a
that.
really interesting film. But my all-time favorite is Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh yeah.
Very good film.
Absolutely love that film. Like Gone in 60 Seconds was kind of
I can still
around.
remember back in the day you loving that film when it came out.
Oh yeah, absolutely loved it. I had a poster on my wall. I love the soundtrack even. People like Moby doing the soundtrack, which was absolutely amazing. But I think it was one of those movies where I reckon I went and saw it 9 or 10 times when it first came out in the cinema. I love the car. It's my dream one day to own Eleanor, the car that's in Gone in 60 Seconds. But to me, it was like it came out at that time when Fast and Furious was kind of really fresh. So it was kind of like in that vein, but you couldn't call it a ripoff because it was, of course, the remake of a earlier film.
Indie film, yeah.
Yeah, but it was just, to me, it was just an amazing film. Memphis Rain is this interesting kind of criminal who is called back into the life to try and save his brother, and he's got cops coming after him. You've got Giovanni Ribisi, you've got Angelina Jolie, Scott Kahn, James Duvall, Will Patton, Timothy Oliphant, Vinnie Jones, Robert Duvall, Christopher Eccleston, of course, plays the bad guy who went on to play Doctor Who. It's just an amazing cast, and yeah, I just love the action of it, and I think Nicolas Cage is really, really good in it. So yeah, Gone in 60 Seconds is my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, and
That's one that that's one that like a lot of people, they don't give it a chance because it's a remake of such an iconic like Revhead movie. But it's like that one's great. Like the original is great because of like all the real car chases and stuff like that. But that one's really good for its characters in the film. Yeah, like Vinnie Jones's character never says anything, but I think you say one of the parts in like film school that they say is like you get a sense of instantly you get a sense of what kind of a character Vinnie Jones is when he's working in a morgue and he puts a sandwich on a dead body.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's like just straight away, you know what kind of person he is.
I love
Nice.
Christopher
Want some
Eccleston
maggots in
in
your sandwich? Yeah.
I love Christopher Eccleston as well. He's such a psycho in this film. And there's that classic line where him and Nicolas Cage are facing off, and Christopher Eccleston's got a love for wooden furniture, and Nicolas Cage breaks a table, and Christopher Eccleston goes nuts, and Nicolas Cage turns around and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's right. You've got something about wood, don't you?" And it's like it's just like such a weird thing to have happen in the middle of a fight scene. But yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, that was one I was actually interested in seeing, and I didn't get to see it at the time. I remember it coming on TV, and because if I miss the start, I don't want to watch the film until I get a chance later. But again, I've just never sat down to it. But I do find the concept of it so interesting, and it wasn't until years later that I found out it was like a remake of something else. But
yeah.
that one, yeah, really did interest me at the time, and I still would go back and watch it. But actually, Dave, you and Lee both mentioned 8mm, and
Yeah.
that's quite an acclaimed film. Like that's been
Yes.
one I've been wanting to see, but at the same time, I know I have to be in the mood to watch it.
Oh yeah.
So, what are your take on that film?
It's pretty full on.
Yeah.
And deep.
So basically the storyline is he's a private detective, and a woman finds a video in her husband's collection after he passes away that is labeled as a snuff film, and she asks Nicolas Cage to find out whether it is actually a real snuff film or fake, and he gets mixed up in a world of
Degeneracy.
perverts, basically
Oh.
perverts and degenerates.
Nice
Yeah.
to say that.
And
So-
Joaquin Phoenix.
Nothing
Yes.
wrong with that.
Yeah, and there was a terrible sequel made that Nicolas Cage is not in, luckily. But yeah, the sequel was really
Yeah,
bad.
that was pretty much softcore, that one. I
Yeah,
think.
but
Oh,
it's
jeez.
a pretty dark
Yeah.
film.
It's
Yeah.
very dark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why I know I had to be in the right mood to
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
it.
definitely.
yeah, and it's weird, and it's kind of interesting now the movies that he's making, because like the one I mentioned before, Color Out of Space, that's based on a Lovecraft short story.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pig, I still think that he was very unlucky not to get an Oscar nomination for Pig. Pig is about a man who's shut himself off from society, and he finds truffles with his pig for restaurants. And one day a rival comes to steal his pig, and from there you start to learn a whole lot about his life as he goes after these guys that have stolen his pig. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting film.
That was a good one because it's like it.
Babe meets
it-
John Wick.
Yeah, it very much is kind of like a John Wick one, like the seedy underbelly of the restaurant scene, you know, and but there's not actually a lot of violence or action, and there's really no like action in it whatsoever. It's like he basically destroys all these people by like breaking them down, like in dialogue.
Yeah.
Like all the people that he goes up against, like all his enemies in the movie are basically he deconstructs them and like takes them out that way, which like I thought was really interesting.
And they made a documentary as well about the truffle industry, because that's where the film came from. Pig was actually based on the violence that was happening in the truffle world in Europe, because truffles are like, a good farmer can find millions of dollars worth of truffles in a year. So there was a whole thing going on where people's pigs and truffle dogs were being killed. And that's where the idea for the film came from. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting kind of weird film. But yeah, he doesn't talk much in it, does he, at the start?
No.
Yeah.
It's he's very much like an outsider kind of guy. He's really just been dragged into this situation. He was just happy being out there in the middle of nowhere hunting for truffles with his pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of different sorts of movies, which I think he's quite a diverse actor. He's in a lot of comic type
Yeah, he's a big
films as
comic
well.
book fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But then in a lot of action films, and the people he's worked alongside, he's worked along some amazing actors, even the ones we've mentioned just recently. yeah, it must be amazing to be able to be one of those actors that gets to work with the best at the time, the best of your time.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those
Yeah,
actors
for
as
sure.
well that a lot of actors and a lot of directors want to work with as well. I mean, for every film he's made, there's probably been like 10 rumors of directors that have wanted him in a film as well. So yeah, he it picks to me that he must be a kind of nice guy to work with if that many people want to work with him. So yeah, but we'll leave.
Or maybe they just would think he'll do absolutely anything.
But we will leave our Nicolas Cage list right there. Go and check out some of the films that we've talked about, and we'll be back in just a moment on centralcoastradio.com.